Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. Let's begin by starting with a motivation that's the most excellent motivation in the universe. The motivation that Bodhisattva Shantideva says is a gold-making elixir that turns this unclean body we've taken on into the jewel of a Buddha. Once we generate this mind, every action that we do will become a cause for perfect Buddhahood. So let's start with this motivation, even if it's contrived, the motivation that says, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I'm attending this teaching this evening to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And how lucky are we that we've been taking this deep dive into the causes for this beautiful mind that is the gold-making elixir that transforms this unclean body we've taken on, as I said, into the jewel of a Buddha. Aren't we the fortunate ones? Rejoice in this fact. Take a deep breath and exhale and recognize this fact that we have these teachings in our life. Now imagine in the space in front of us, all of the enlightened beings begin to form in order to serve as our role models, serve as a source of strength for us to see that this enlightenment that's spoken of is actually possible. If we rely upon the teachings, we'll be able to achieve exactly what the enlightened beings we're imagining in the space in front of us have achieved. Imagining Buddha Shakyamuni and all the extensive deeds, lineage, and profound view lineage beings and the lineage of blessings beings, all the holy beings of the Tibetan lineages. Just imagining every being you consider a holy enlightened being in the space in front of you. Now imagine that you're sharing this gift. We said, I want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And the way that Buddhas help sentient beings is to help them to evolve, to help them to learn what the truth of suchness is, so that they can discover exactly what the Buddhas have discovered and achieve liberation. The highest form of generosity that we can engage in is the generosity of the Dharma, giving sentient beings the opportunity to discover themselves, the levels of concentration that are necessary to be able to understand emptiness, and the supporting practices, the ripening practices of renunciation and bodhicitta that serve as foundations for one to be able to finally achieve that goal, because we know that there's a necessity of a union of method and wisdom in order to achieve the goal of complete Buddhahood. We have to accumulate both of these collections in order to achieve what we want, and that's complete happiness and freedom from suffering forever, and a chance to be the most reliable guide in the universe with perfect love, compassion, skillful means, power, perfect caring for others, concern for others, a perfect wisdom that understands conventional and ultimate truth simultaneously and isn't hindered in any way to be able to understand exactly what it is that every single sentient being in the universe needs at every single moment of their lives. And knows exactly, because of the skillful means and the omniscience coupled with the caring for others, exactly what to do to help every single sentient being in the moments of their lives as they're stuck in cyclic existence in the prison of samsara. So imagine now that you're able to, in the way that we can, share the Dharma with sentient beings in an imagined way, so that we lay the foundation, the groundwork within our minds to be able to actually, in the future, be able to do it when we become Buddhas, when we achieve the state of Buddhahood. So as you imagine inviting all sentient beings here to be your guest, hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods, I'll recite this verse from the King of Aspirations prayers, the Sanchimulam, in the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Lai ke dan lo dan no jing ge drupung da dan mi ke nan dan zhou wa gong ji dan nan ji san ba dan che ke du da gi ji den do. Now imagine all sentient beings have been invited here. And imagine that all the enlightened beings are in the space in front of you. And again, we have this highest aspiration that a sentient being can have, this aspiration that may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And now that every kind of being that exists in the universe is here, sentient beings and Buddhas, enlightened beings, now imagine that we're now at the actual place where the Heart Sutra was taught, where the medicine, the incredible miracle that the Buddha came to tell us about, the miracle of the emptiness of inherent existence, this medicine that quells all of our suffering if we take it and understand it, this medicine that the Buddha came to tell us that things, nothing in the universe inherently exists, while still being able to keep cause and effect, karma, functioning things intact. This understanding of a mode of existence that we've never been able to even comprehend, think about, or imagine, the Buddha came to tell us about. And the Buddha said, if we could come to understand what the actual mode of existence of things is, we wouldn't have to suffer so badly at grasping at them incorrectly. So we're so fortunate. The Buddha came to give this medicine, the most powerful medicine one can take, that serves as a direct antidote to all of the sufferings, because it serves as a direct antidote to the afflictions that give rise to contaminated karmas, which give rise to samsara. And hidden within this sutra we're about to recite is the teachings on the paths, the stages of the path necessary for a bodhisattva to go through in order to become a Buddha. The stages of the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, that result in no more learning, result in complete Buddhahood. So hidden within this beautiful sutra, we find these incredible teachings. So now imagine we're at Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, where so many of the sutras were pronounced, and that the Buddha is here blessing Shariputra and Chenrezig. And while we're imagining this and imagining that we are leading all sentient beings in this prayer and they're reciting along with us, let's recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, no mind, dhatu, no dhatu, dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable true complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. I prostrate to the gatherings of dakinis in the three chakras, who abide in the holy yoga of using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother looks after her child. Agha samara jashandara samara bega samara jashandara samara. Agha samara jashandara samara ave de ada onga de gade barazanga de bodhizo. By the truth of the existence of the three jewels, may all inner and outer hindrances and adversities be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from all adverse conditions to the Dharma, and may we obtain all circumstances conducive to the Dharma. May there be auspiciousness, happiness, and well-being here, right now. Mandala offering, outer mandala offering is a request for the teaching, offering a perfect universe to the merit field and the teachers and the teacher. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. To the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. To the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. And now let us recite the foundation of all good qualities, the source of all my good, by Lama Tsongkhapa, and then we will get into the explanation of the actual verse that we're on related to the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta, the mind that Lord Maitreya defines in the Abhisammalamkara as the wish to achieve the highest enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. The source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I have done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful, to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of liberation. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of the Pratamoksha the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me, stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never be separate from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good level of every level and path, every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay. Aren't we lucky to be able to learn how to become the ones who hold the diamond, to become Vajradhara, not how to become just a little better or how to feel a little better or temporarily better, how to actually become a Buddha, how to become a fully enlightened being that has no more afflictive obscurations or afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience, which are also called cognitive obscurations. No more. And those are the things that keep us from being completely satisfied, you know, keep us from never having to suffer again. Those are the things that keep us from the highest amounts of happiness that we could ever have. And thank goodness that the Buddha came to this world because of discovering a way out that wasn't something he made up. It was something he discovered. It was just the nature of things that we were missing all the time that was causing this cycle in samsaric rebirth, and this cycle and the suffering, the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering that, when investigated, is displeasing. So thank goodness the Buddha came here to talk to us about this stuff. And we've been talking about the actual Mahayana practices at this point because we've looked at the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity already that serve as the foundation for us to be able to actually generate a mind that allows us to enter into the Mahayana. And we know that the only entrance into the Mahayana is this beautiful mind we're speaking about called bodhicitta, the mind that aspires to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And it's just not a mind that thinks that becoming a Buddha is a good idea. It's a mind that only thinks about the things one would do to make that happen and does it for the purpose, for the reason of being able to free everyone from their state. So it's a very, very special mind that comes about from your understanding of your own suffering. Your bodhicitta will come about because you will recognize, just like my bodhicitta will come about when I recognize the true distasteful nature of cyclic existence, and then recognize that everyone we care about and that kind of object of everyone that we care about becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when we practice these things we're talking about, has the same problem that we have in relation to the cyclic existence and the afflictive obstructions that keep us in cyclic existence, and the obstructions to omniscience, or the cognitive obstructions, obscurations that keep us from having our highest potential achieved or realized, our perfected state realized, our highest, our perfect reliability realized. And if we have perfect reliability because we're omniscient and we care about others day and night, then we're going to be the most helpful beings in the universe, because we won't have any baggage, and we'll know how to get rid of others' baggage, because we'll have let that baggage off. And Lama Tsongkhapa makes it so clear that the weight of a self, because the Buddha has a self. Self exists. The Buddha didn't come to tell us that things don't exist. The Buddha came to tell us about things existing in a way we never thought about, and that if we could learn that, we wouldn't suffer anymore. So the Buddha has a much lighter self, because this self the Buddha is walking around as the self is a Buddha, we're walking around as sentient beings, has a huge weight lifted off him or her. And that's the weight of this self-grasping ignorance that concretizes things that aren't concrete. And when we think things are concrete, it freaks us out, and we do stuff about it that doesn't make sense because they weren't concrete in the first place. So our starting point didn't make sense, and then we're just keep not making sense over and over and over and over and over again. And the Buddha said, halt. And then the Buddha said that not only do you need this kind of wisdom to halt things, you also, if you want to achieve your highest potential, have to learn how to cherish others more than yourself. So this is what we're learning how to do now. But it only comes about by understanding that, tasting one's own vomit, as Venerable Rabina Corton says. That's what, under renunciation is knowing that this is what samsara really tastes like. This is what everything in samsara tastes like. Whether you won the lottery, winning the lottery tastes like vomit, or you're in the hell realm tastes like vomit. That is how good everything in samsara is. And it's compared to a prison. It's compared to a house that's on fire that you need to get out of. And now we're going to learn about how to want to carry everyone out of that house that's on fire. And what an amazing sentiment. How could anyone think that this isn't a beautiful mind? An idea that you want to get everybody out of there, if you call it samsara house, the house of suffering. And there are these exit doors. No one knows where they are. Wouldn't it be delightful if you could carry all beings just in the nick of time out of that house? And this is the kind of mind we're trying to generate. So we've gone through the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity that serve as an indispensable foundation in terms of the mental basis needed to actually generate bodhicitta. So if you don't have extremely well, if you don't understand the small and medium scope really, really well, and haven't applied it to your own mind to the point where you really get the Four Noble Truths, the 12 links of dependent origination, really get that the three highest higher trainings are a way out of cyclic existence. If you aren't buying into that and buying into the Buddha as the sole source of refuge, there's no way that you would have any kind of motivation that would be needed to endure the hardships of a bodhisattva for the sake of others. You wouldn't think it was important enough. You wouldn't think it was important enough for yourself to do nothing else but try to get out of cyclic existence. Why would you think it was important enough to then try to get everybody else out of cyclic existence if you didn't find it bad enough to want to get out for yourself? And we know that we have this kind of affinity for ourselves, this self-cherishing attitude. We admire ourselves, even at its subtlest form, even if we're not disregarding others' needs like grossly, we're oblivious, and we think that, ooh, I really adore myself and should be happy. We have this kind of attitude. So let's take a peek at this. Let's take a peek at this stuff that we need to do. We already looked at. Let's get ourselves to where we are in terms of this practice and what we've been talking about. So, and please, I really encourage you as I'm speaking, just to kind of, everybody's muted, so I won't hear you. Just say the steps out loud that I'm saying. As I'm giving categories, as I'm giving outlines, say the steps along with me, and this will help you to remember them. Because when you do meditations with your mind, your books, reading is meditation, familiarizing yourself. But when you sit down on the cushion, the most effective thing is if you have these steps memorized and can then recall them in your meditation and then go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in on them. So we've been learning about how to get a mind that would be intent on others' welfare. So we've been learning about how we would go about doing that. And when we look at the steps that Buddha taught on how to get a mind intent on Buddhahood, which is the end kind of result of all of these practices we're talking about, which is bodhicitta, a mind that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. There's instructional lineages that show us how to actually get this mind that we've never even imagined could be possible. How to be unbiased and want to help everyone, to have and take it upon yourself, to become a Buddhist so that you can free everyone from suffering and bring them to a state of happiness. It's a big mind. That's a big deal. So the practice, one of the lineages passed down, is called the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or the 7-point instruction on achieving or realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And this was passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha, down through the extensive deeds lineage to Master Salimpa to Lord Atisha and the incredible teacher Dron Tompa, and then down through various lineage masters to us. Aren't we so lucky? Aren't we so fortunate? It comes to us from Buddha Shakyamuni and Lord Maitreya. They're part of our spiritual family, and we will become Buddhas because they've helped us as our family members, helping us because they care more about us than anybody has ever cared about us that we've known personally, because they've removed that self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude that disallows everyone that we usually know from going all in on help, going fully in and fully investing in our well-being, and then fully investing in everyone else's well-being at the same time. It's really an incredible thing. So this practice is the 7-point cause and effect is passed down. And then there's the other practice of the profound view lineage of equalizing and exchanging self with others, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri and Arya Nagarjuna, and then down through to Master Shantideva. And in the Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, he says the 7-point cause and effect instruction for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment passed down from Lord Atisha. And we know that Lord Atisha holds both of those lineages, but in the Lamrim Chemo, Lama Tsongkhapa points out Atisha specifically for this lineage and Bodhisattva Shantideva specifically for the lineage of equalizing and exchanging self with others. So the 7-point cause and effect instruction has a pre-step that we've talked about, which is equanimity, is developing this kind of clean palette of your mind that has an unbiased attitude in relation to beings that you would usually have bias in certain ways towards, such as friends you have attachment towards, enemies you have aversion towards, and neutrals you just disregard. So we've looked at these practices that would make our mind even enough to be equally willing to benefit all of these certain types of, all of these varieties of sentient beings, equally willing to be beneficial, just equally, just an open mind in relation to every single sentient being in the universe And we have to rely upon the previous teachings in the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment in the medium scope and the small scope, where we look at the varieties of existence and so forth, to understand and how there is this uncertainty that makes us recognize these varieties of relationships that we've had with all sentient beings, that kind of erases this idea that we should be more willing to or more open-minded in relation to some than others. So we developed this clean palette of equanimity as a pre-step to this actual 7-point cause and effect instruction, and we've gone over that extensively, looking at the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment and the varieties of commentaries that we were able to look at, and we're so fortunate to look at, by, Pabonka Rinpoche and the Panchen Lamas and the various Dalai Lamas and so forth. Very fortunate that we were able to look at that. So that's the pre-step. And then we get into the actual instruction. And when we look at the instruction itself, we have this pre-step that's a ground. And when we look at the outline of Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, we look at this training of the mind to become intent on others' welfare. And there's this part that's called the establishing the basis for developing the attitude. So establishing the basis for developing this attitude, we find within it the pre-step of equanimity. So there's a basis for developing an attitude which is intent on others' welfare. There's a basis needed there. And then the other part of basis, after we get to equanimity, are these first 3 steps that we've been focusing on so much, looking at under a microscope. And this is a way that we develop affection for all beings. Remember, we talked about in the beginning of this that we have to develop an affection for all beings, that one that views everyone, like every single being in the universe, like they're our dear children. We're working at a way of getting our minds to a point that's so different than the way that my mind currently is. But thank goodness we have analytical meditation that we can do that will actually change our minds from a cognitive perspective, so that our affective states of mind are completely different than they are right now. How we discriminate sentient beings and feel about them will change completely. How we discriminate those we consider monsters and enemies will change completely once we've practiced these steps and come to see them all equally as our mothers, as we first learn about in these steps. And when that discrimination changes, the way we feel changes and our intentions change. And we know that our intentions drive our intended actions. And what do we want our intentions and intended actions to be? Causes for samsara or causes for liberation and Buddhahood? What do we want them to be? And the only way we can turn them into the way that we want them to be is to actually apply this medicine that Buddha's teaching us about, that causes us to say, this makes sense, and causes our minds to become more and more in line with what makes sense. And when they're more in line with what makes sense, there's a peace that comes over you when you engage in what makes sense. When you start to meditate and you start to be able to get, closer and closer to calm abiding, they say, your mind calms down and cools off. When you start to realize emptiness, it's like pouring cold water on boiling water, cools it down, calms it down. When you meditate on bodhicitta, it expands your mind and keeps your mind from being so constricted. So we see these benefits just in our daily life of doing this stuff, let alone what these great masters say it will do for us in terms of the imprints that it leaves within our continuum, to be able to connect eventually with more and more sophisticated teachings that we will be able to digest, because we'll have meditated enough to be able to understand them and heard enough teachings to be able to logically know how to conclude these things we will conclude as we arrive at higher and higher stages on the path. So we've been looking at, again, the 7-point cause and effect. There's pre-step, which is the pre-step of developing impartiality or equanimity. And these all serve as foundations for the actual development of an attitude intent on others' welfare. So we went through equanimity, and now there are these steps, which are the first 3 of the 6 causes for generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment in the 7-point cause and effect. So the 7-point cause and effect has 6 causes and 1 result, the result being bodhicitta. The 6 causes, equanimity is not part of that. It's a precept. And when we look at the outline in the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, it talks about it being the basis of achieving this impartiality as a basis or as a foundation or as what is needed to move to the next step of recognizing all sentient beings as our mother. So the 7-point cause and effect, I'll list it, and then we'll look more at the categories. So recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, the extraordinary attitude, or it's called altruism, and then bodhicitta. So the first 3 steps are steps that get us to have affection for beings. So they become, everyone in the universe becomes someone that we would think is lovable. This is this love through the force of attraction. This attraction means we see them all as lovable because we've recognized that they are our mothers. We remembered how kind they are and have decided that we should repay this kindness. So we've developed this affection for beings and have come to see them as lovable. And in Buddhism, when we define what love is it's wanting beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then if we look at it in terms of the 7-point cause and effect, it has a little bit more power to it because it serves as the basis for, just like the great compassion serves as the basis for the springboard into altruism or the extraordinary attitude. And it's a special kind of love and a special kind of compassion that's the biggest one, that has as its object of observation every single sentient being in the universe. And it's inspired in such a way, in this particular case, by the 3rd step that says, I must repay their kindness. It's inspired in such a way that makes you say, I will take on this task of doing this. So we've looked at these foundational steps that are necessary for us to get affection. So we would actually see beings as lovable, because the 3rd step is love through the force of attraction. So without really going through this, you can see now that when we look at the commentaries and we look at these yogis who've meditated on these things, they say, don't stop meditating on this subject till you have certain realizations occur, till you look at every being in the universe and say, Mama, till you look at every being in the universe and say, you were so kind to me, till you look at every single being in the universe and say, you're under the control of your afflictions. I must do something about this. I must repay your kindness. You were so kind to me. I have so much affection for you. I must do something for you. Because when you have affection for people, when you see someone in the light of affection, you want to do something for them. You want good things for them. You want the greatest things for them in this case, because you know what the greatest thing is, because you've studied it for yourself. You know what greatness is. You know what the greatest, highest level that can be achieved is. And you want that for them, because you wouldn't settle for anything less than that for them, because we learned that giving them samsaric pleasures is just deceptive. It's like giving them this more suffering, giving them the suffering of change, giving samsaric pleasures in order to get someone in a position to be able to teach them how to get out of the suffering of change is different. When we look at the 4 ways of gathering disciples, we see that the teacher is generous and speaks very, very nicely and so forth. We know that these are necessary, but only for the point of being able to get the student to be able to discover the truth of suchness eventually. That is the only way out of samsara. So this is just like boom, 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 step by step, cause, effect, cause, effect. And if you generate the cause before the effect can happen. If the cause isn't there, the effect can't happen. If the cause of understanding the Four Noble Truths isn't there, if the cause of understanding the 12 links of dependent origination isn't there, if the cause that once you know all about that, renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge from that messy process isn't there, there is no possible way bodhicitta can occur, because you won't think it's disgusting enough to feel that I must help that person over there who's under the control of their afflictions. So I think that we went over this well. I'm very confident that if you meditate on the points that we've gone over, based on the amount of commentaries that we've used, right from Lord Buddha and the Descent into the Lanka Sutra to get through this, and all of the incredible commentaries and points made by Master Shantideva and Master Baba Vega, and looking at all these different things that we looked at from Pabuka Rinpoche and the Panchen Lamas and all of the Dalai Lamas up to the current Dalai Lama. It's just amazing we have this. And I am confident that if you meditate, just like I'm confident if I meditate on this detailed information, my mind will change, and will change eventually in such a way that it doesn't resemble what it does right now at all. And my mind in the last 25 years has changed in such a way that it doesn't resemble what it did at all. But I hope and pray that that evolution continues, because I know that I don't have renunciation, bodhicitta, or the correct view of emptiness. But I do know that things have changed in my mind so drastically that even more drastic changes are possible. So now let's look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And let's look at this section on the cultivation of love. And wow, Lama Tsongkhapa is so kind to go right to the sutras, quoting everything that we need to know, sending us to all these places and saying basically, don't believe me. Don't believe only what I'm saying here. This is where Lord Buddha says it. This is where the authentic Indian Pandits say it. And it's just incredible that we have this. Okay, so now we've set a foundation of affection. So now we can actually develop an attitude which is intent on others' welfare. So we have this foundation, we have affection for beings. We've really come to see these beings as helpless when we look at this step of wishing to repay others' kindness. And we see that everyone has this self-grasping ignorance that's causing them to have inappropriate attention and gross afflictions and contaminated karmas and more samsara and more samsara. So we're recognizing this, and so we're looking at sentient beings in this light of affection, and we're saying, so now we'll move on to, so the development of the attitude of being intent on others' welfare. Okay, so now we said the first 3 steps, the actual steps, not the pre-step, the first 3 steps of recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness, were foundational steps to generate this affection. And now they set a foundation of affection that will then allow us to generate the next 3 steps of love through the force of attraction, great compassion, and the extraordinary attitude or altruism. So we see the connection between the foundational steps and then the ability to meditate in ways on the next steps. I think that you're all starting to get this very clearly, that don't be satisfied with partial instructions. And if you aren't, there's gold to find. There's just delicious nectar out there if you just put a little bit of effort in to this instead of things that make you unhappy in the end. This will only make you happy in the end. And let's read about it. The cultivation of love. So again, the 4th step in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The 4th step, love through the force of attraction. That's how Yongi Shamba, that's how I'm translating it. Many other translation options that aren't as literal, maybe Seeing beings in the light of affection, seeing beings with affection in the light of love is another way that it's translated, this attractive, the light of affection. So it's fine. It's basically you're seeing them as lovable. And if you love if someone's lovable, then you love them. And when you love them, in this case, it's you want them to have happiness and the causes of happiness. Let's go. In order to understand the cultivation of love, you must know the following topics. Oh, okay. Must. That sounds important. The object of love is living beings who do not have happiness. The subjective aspects are thinking, how nice it would be if beings were happy. May they be happy. I will cause them to be happy. So you've said, I want to repay their kindness. And you want, because you find them lovable, them to be happy. So now you're thinking, I'm going to be a cause for this happiness. It doesn't go much further than that. It's just this buildup that serves as the foundation for altruism. I'm going to be the cause for this. And then you move on to great compassion. I'm going to be the cause for this. I'm going to take, and then altruism lands on, after you've meditated in this way, which is the sixth step, lands because you've said, I want to cause them to have happiness. I want to cause them to be free from suffering. I'm going to take it on myself, the task of bringing them to happiness and freedom from suffering. So you see, I last week talked about it's like a musical piece that's building up in our mind. We're building up this idea that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when this piece is building up, our mind is lightening because it's not as constricted. So you will be happier if you do this meditation. You will be happier. So the object of love is beings who don't have happiness. And what did you learn in the Four Noble Truths? If you were in samsara, you don't have happiness. That's a lot to swallow. Any kind of samsaric happiness is just the suffering of change. It's the bait that keeps you in cyclic existence. And we're going to read about some of this a little bit more. In order to understand the cultivation of love, you must know the following topics. The object of love is living beings who do not have happiness. Full stop. So, and the subjective aspects are thinking, how nice it would be if beings were happy. May they be happy. I will cause them to be happy. And then we find the benefits of love. Lama Tsongkhapa says in the King of Concentration Sutra. King of Concentration Sutra, a hugely important, hugely quoted sutra that deals with emptiness quite a bit. It's quoted in relation to emptiness a lot. And it's mostly an interaction between a young with this layperson Chandraprabha, and it consists of the various aspects of the Bodhisattva's conduct and motivation and the understanding of emptiness. And it shows the necessity of all of these conducts of the Bodhisattva and of the understanding of emptiness. And of course, in this sutra, the Buddha gives teachings by recounting his previous lives, and mostly the teachings taking place at Vulture Peak Mountain. But also there's like a part of it where the Buddha actually goes to Chandraprabha's house and continues to teach, and then goes back to Vulture Peak Mountain. So I encourage you to, this is a really, really important sutra, the King of Concentration Sutras, and you will hear it quoted over and over and over again throughout various texts, throughout the Shantideva's texts and Chandrakirti's texts, Bodhisattva Shantideva's texts and Acharya Chandrakirti's texts. And then you see a chapter, various chapters, and then Ananda, the Maha-Ananda, the Bodhisattva's attendant, actually concludes the text with a commitment to maintain the teaching in the future. So for those of you who want to know some history, when you see the tanka of Buddha Shakyamuni, the picture of Buddha Shakyamuni, and you see there's two people, monks standing below Buddha Shakyamuni. One is Moggallana. Moggallana was one of the Buddha's students who's known for his miraculous powers, and the other one was Master Ananda. And Master Ananda was Buddha's attendant. And the way that this went is the Buddha was out giving lots of teachings, and everyone decided that the Buddha needed an attendant. And everyone said that Ananda should be the Buddha's attendant. They basically said, we want you to be, they voted, I don't know how they decided. They decided that Ananda should be the Buddha's attendant. And so Ananda made one rule, made some other rules actually, didn't just make one rule. But one of the main things Master Ananda said, is that I'll do this, but the Buddha can't give any teachings unless I'm there. I have to be at every single teaching the Buddha gives. So this was agreed upon. And as a side note, we've talked about before, sometimes you see 84,000 bundles of the Buddha's teachings. Sometimes you see 80,000 bundles of the Buddha's teachings. And the reason for this difference is that some folks, some masters, don't consider the teachings before Master Ananda was Buddha's attendant and at every one to be within the groupings or trustable or trustworthy or however you would say it before Ananda was around. So there were 4,000 bundles of teachings apparently given before Master Ananda became the Buddha's attendant. So therefore, this is the reasoning behind the 84,000 versus 80,000. 80,000 of these bundles of teachings Master Ananda was around for. So you see at the conclusion of this text, Master Ananda making a commitment to proliferate, to continue this teaching on the King of Concentration Sutra. So just a little background. So this is a teaching by Lord Buddha given in Rajgriha, the same place that the Heart Sutra takes place, at Vulture Peak Mountain, actually in Rajgriha. Yeah, and let's see if there's anything. Okay, so I think that's sufficient. So here's the quote. With respect to the benefits of love, the King of Concentration Sutra states, always offering to superior beings as many countless offerings as there are in billions of lands does not equal a portion of benefit of a loving attitude, a portion of the benefit of a loving attitude. So then it says that the benefit of love has far greater merit than continually making vast offerings to the highest recipients, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then Lama Tsongkhapa then quotes another sutra, amazing, another very important sutra called The Array of Qualities in Manjushri's Buddha Realm. So this is a sutra, and basically in this sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni expresses the connection between a bodhisattva's aspirations and then their actual future Buddha realms. And he actually describes how Arya Manjushri, he recounts how Arya Manjushri first becomes a bodhisattva and then reveals the extraordinary kind of qualities of the Buddha fields or virtues of the Buddha fields, of Manjushri's Buddha fields that will occur as a result of these beautiful aspirations. And how these beautiful aspirations are directly contributory, or directly contribute to the excellent, exceptional qualities of the actual future Buddha realm. So these aspirations we're making right now, when we say, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, the Buddha is saying aspirations are so important. You become inspired and then you aspire for something. And it's amazing that we see how because all phenomena arise from causes, the causes are taught by the Tathagata. All composite things arise from causes. And we see that no exceptional quality is causeless. And we're lucky. We know how to cause exceptional qualities because the Buddha was so kind to come tell us how to do it. So here, this is another sutra where the Buddha is recounting Arya Manjushri's becoming a bodhisattva and just displaying, letting everyone know how incredible the aspirations of Manjushri are, Arya Manjushri are, and what these aspirations will make occur. In the northeast is the land of the conqueror, Buddha Ishvara, called decorated by 1,000 universes. Their living beings have a happiness which is like a bliss of a monk who experiences a cessation. If you generate a loving attitude here in Jambu, that's where we live, the southern continent, toward all living beings for merely a snap of the fingers, the merit produced greatly surpasses the merit gained by keeping pure conduct for 1 trillion years. Is there any need to mention the merit of abiding in a loving attitude both day and night? And here we have another quote, and then we'll end soon. Another quote, and this is from Arya Nagarjuna's Precious Garland. And many of you were so fortunate to be able to receive this teaching from Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche on the Precious Garland, and upcoming Geshe Yeshe Tapke Rinpoche, the incredible master, will be teaching the Precious Garland with the great Lotsawa, Katrina translating, and I encourage every single one of you. It will be through the Shavasti Abbey's YouTube page. It's also on Drepung Loseling, Texas's Facebook page when it comes on. Geshe Yeshe Tapke Rinpoche just finished teaching the Rice Seedling Sutra, and he's one of the greatest scholars of a generation. He's 97 years old, and his mind is so clear. And I really beg you all, entreat you all to receive teachings from this highly realized being. So Arya Nagarjuna's Precious Garland states to offer 300 small pots of food, even 3 times a day, does not equal a portion of the merit of a fraction of an instant of love. Even if you are not liberated through love, you will attain 8 good qualities. Deities and humans will love you. They will also protect you. You will have joy and much physical pleasure. Poison and weapons will not harm you. You will attain your aims effortlessly and be reborn in the world of Brahma. If you have love, and so that's the end of the quote from Arya Nagarjuna's Precious Garland. Then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to say, if you have love, deities and humans will love you and will naturally gravitate towards you. Moreover, the conqueror defeated Mara's enemies with the power of love. So we see in the life story of Lord Buddha, when he's under the Bodhi tree and Mara's attacking him with arrows, and the arrows are turning into flowers. This is through the power of Buddha Shakyamuni's Prince Siddhartha in this particular version of the story's love. So we see this the power of the love being the supreme protector. Once we really, really have it, once we really have a non-biased love towards every single sentient being in the universe, like the real thing, it's an ultimate form of protection. So love is the supreme protector. Thus, although love is difficult to develop, you must strive to do so. The Compendium of Training says that you should think wholeheartedly about the verses of the Sutra of the Golden Light, which discusses the cultivation of love and compassion. It further says that you should at least recite and meditate on the following verse from this sutra. So basically, the Sutra of Golden Light, many of you have read. Lama Zopa Rinpoche considered it very important to recite it for world peace, to end wars. It was, and the Buddha said this is something that all the kings and ministers and presidents should know about and recite. And it has a power. It's a contribution that we can make towards world peace. And I encourage you to look it up, and you can find on the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's own teachings and words about it. And then you can look up on the 84,000 Translation Project this actual sutra, and you can read it, and you can contribute to the peace in the world. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says that you can just read small parts of it, and it will help to bring about peace. And we know that right now the world is a disaster. The world's always a disaster, but it's kind of smelly right now, disastery, and lots of wars and lots of hate and lots of bifurcation. And the bifurcation is causing it. And we know better. And we have medicine for our minds to not have to be so affected by external circumstances. And if we can take that medicine, then we can truly be helpers in this world instead of reactors. Instead of people who put gasoline on a fire, we can actually be the ones that pour cold water on boiling water. And that's what we should aim to do. So the Golden Light Sutra is a sutra about purifying karma. It goes through these ideas that, the Buddha teaches that, Buddhas don't die, a whole tons and tons of, there's bodhisattvas there, and Buddhas teach the teaching is, Buddha asks for anybody who's sick, anybody who has a problem, invites the bodhisattvas, and then, teaches about karma and teaches that Buddhas don't die and teaches about the bodies of the Buddha. And then the fourth chapter is how the sutra actually gets its name. Because there's a bodhisattva named Rukiraketu. I'm sure I said that wrong. Rukiraketu. And this bodhisattva goes home after this teaching the Buddha's given at Bolcher Peak Mountain. This bodhisattva, a lot of bodhisattvas there. They're all listed actually in the sutra, all these bodhisattvas' names. And one of the bodhisattvas goes home and has a dream that there's this golden drum that's beaten that makes all of these aspirations, and then does a confession prayer. And this confession prayer, then for some reason, this bodhisattva is able to memorize everything that this golden drum played, and this golden drum was beat, and all these aspirations and confession prayers came out of it in this dream that this bodhisattva had. And then he goes back to tell Buddha about this dream that he had. So I encourage you to read this and to engage in, the purification of the world, this Golden Light Sutra. And you also find the narrative of the tigress in there that we've all heard about from Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche. So much. And we read the tigress, if you all remember, 2 anniversaries of Rinpoche passings ago. We read the tigress as a part of us becoming inspired to not be satisfied with partial instructions and to not stop, as Rinpoche begged us not to stop practicing. So important sutra. So what did we hear? Lama Tsongkhapa is so kind. So in not even probably okay, so we'll call it a page and a half, Lama Tsongkhapa has quoted the King of Concentration Sutra. Lama Tsongkhapa has quoted the Array of Qualities in Manjushri's Buddha Realm Sutra. Hold on, I've got to do the I'm not a robot. And the Buddha, and the Buddha, sometimes called the second Buddha, Lama Tsongkhapa then quotes Arya Nagarjuna's Precious Garland. And then now Lama Tsongkhapa is quoting the Sutra of Golden Light. And it says that, he's using the advice from the compendium of trainings that's given. So we'll just read the quote and then we'll end here. Well, how much? No, we won't. Well, I have one paragraph after that, and then this whole section of the Lamrim Chemo is done. And then the weeks following, we have some incredible commentaries related to love. So I encourage you all to be here. It further says that you should at least recite and meditate on the following verse from this sutra, the Sutra of Golden Light. Through the sound of the sacred golden light great drum, may the suffering of miserable realms, the sufferings brought on by the Lord of Death, the sufferings of poverty, and all suffering be extinguished in the 3 realms of the universe of 3 billion world systems. The stages of cultivating love are as follows. First, cultivate love towards friends, then cultivate love towards persons whom you have neutral feelings. Now cultivate love towards your enemies. Then cultivate it gradually towards all other beings. The way to cultivate love is as follows. Just as you can develop compassion once you have repeatedly thought about how living beings are made miserable by suffering, develop love by thinking repeatedly how living beings lack all happiness, both contaminated and uncontaminated. When you become familiar with this, you will naturally wish for beings to be happy. In addition, bring to mind various forms of happiness and then offer them to living beings. So here it's saying that living beings can't even get a break with a little contaminated happiness, for gosh sakes. Wish them to have that. And then really, though, what we want them to have is the uncontaminated happiness, a happiness that doesn't have within it a cradle of the afflictions and a cradle of the obstructions to omniscience. Okay, so let's figure out how to become bodhisattvas, because we have no excuse not to. We know that our karma isn't fixed in such a way that nothing in our life has any variability. We know that our mind isn't stuck. It's empty of inherent existence. We know that our proliferating Buddha nature is empty of inherent existence. Our impure mind is empty of inherent existence. The Buddha's pure mind is empty of inherent existence. The nature of my mind, in terms of the ultimate truth of my mind, the emptiness of inherent existence, is no different than the ultimate truth of Buddha's mind, that it's empty of inherent existence. And that ultimate truth of my mind and that ultimate truth of the Buddha's mind does not exist ultimately. That ultimate truth is also empty of inherent existence. Emptiness is empty of inherent existence. We don't, as a friend of mine said, need this super truth that objectively exists. We just need a non-affirming negative to prove to us there's a non-finding of inherent existence. We need this non-affirming negative that is a non-finding of inherent existence. And if we can combine that with this mind that we're talking about, we have the atomic bomb that blows up the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience and gets rid of this disgusting mind of ours that day and night is unsatisfied and suffers. This gold-making elixir of bodhicitta we're learning about that transforms this impure body we've taken on into the jewel of a Buddha's form. That's the name of the game. That's what we're trying to do. And I hope that this class has helped you to move closer to the potential for that to happen. And I encourage you to read some of these sutras that we read about tonight. Look at the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And when Lama Tsongkhapa brings something up, don't be satisfied with partial instructions. Lama Tsongkhapa couldn't make the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment 150,000 pages. How would you read that? So we're going to need to dive into things as we see them. Okay, cool. So let's do some dedicating. So we know that the Kadampa masters of old, Lord Atisha's lineage passed down through Master Drone Tompa and the three old Kadampa lineages. They said, those masters tell us there's two times that are important in relation to spiritual practice. The beginning, setting a proper motivation. That's why we begin the way we do. And the end, doing a proper dedication. So we dedicate this virtue to our becoming a Buddha, because we know that any virtue that's dedicated to Buddhahood will be a cause for that Buddhahood. Just like a drop of water that's put into the ocean isn't extinguished until the entire ocean is extinguished. Likewise, any virtue dedicated to enlightenment will remain until we achieve Buddhahood, which it will be a cause for. Okay, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, I apologize. May they be purified by this Vajrasattva mantra. Om benza zata zamaya mani malaya benza zata zani vajra dida me vazu gai me vazu gai me vanrag me vazu avazini me braja zava kamasuji me gidam jigam gurum hao bhagavan zava tata kata benza mami moka benza bava mahazamaya sapa ahom hey. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo, who is Tara. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Jinja Kala Raja Mo Rama Ajada Jo Junjo Rila Rila Hong Jo Hong. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. And a prayer of supplication to my root guru, Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend, who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Oma, Om, Oma. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patient listening and for allowing me the opportunity to help transform my mind by investigating these teachings further and by saying them out loud. It leaves stronger imprints for me to be able to achieve happiness and freedom from suffering. And if it's of benefit to you, as Bodhisattva Shantideva says in the beginning of the Bodhicharya Avatar, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, if you are a similar lot as me or kind of like me, maybe they can help you too. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, everybody.